So welcome back to my channel. Now, the thing is, I want to introduce this plant, and I'm sure many of you in Europe or even in Southern Africa do have this plant in your garden. Some people do say it's invasive, and I'll explain that later, but it's one of my favorite plant, only because of the flowers. And if you see these flowers, that is really sky blue, and I just love those colors. So now with this plant, I had it in the garden, and as I was trying to chop the flowers, which is a few days ago, so I could put it in water and preserve it, the plant started wilting. So welcome back to my channel. My name is Alice and I'm the Red Soil Gardener, and today we're going to learn how to do forget-me-nots and do a seed propagation with it so that you too can have abundance in your garden. Now, basically, if you do understand forget-me-not, is basically it is a symbol of love, it's a symbol of true love. And there is a story that I read that these two people were walking along, I think post-war, Second World War, and suddenly I think the handkerchief went into the lake, and as the soldier ran to the lake to get the handkerchief, he drowns, and his last word to his beautiful lady was forget-me-not. But it is a symbol of love, and the other name for it is the scorpion grass. Now, why I love this plant, again, as I mentioned, is the color blue. And you do get varieties that do have white flowers, and you do get other varieties that have pink flowers. But this is my flower because that blue is so magnetic that if you do have it in as borders along your garden, it does show drama. Now, the thing about forget-me-nots is that they are forget-me-nots that are perennial, and they will pick up every year in your garden, but you do have some which are annual. Now, the thing about forget-me-nots, why they call them invasive, is that they do spread their seeds, and we'll go into that because that's part of our propagation for seed propagation. But what you do have is that you have different types. You have the wooded forget-me-nots, which are actually up in the mountains, and they are in the fields. And then you do have another variety, which is basically a meadow type variety that does grow along rivers. But basically they're both the same type of plant. When this flower does start getting stronger and it starts bringing out its bloom, what happens is that each bloom, if this came from one plant, each bloom has a central stem, and all these little adjacent stems would be full of this blue flower. So you could just imagine the showers of blue everywhere. Now, the other thing, what they do say is at night it does give a fragrance, which could be stunning if you have the whole area close to your entrance, where you do scatter these beautiful forget-me-nots, and as your visitors walk in, they get the fragrance of the forget-me-not plant. Now, provided you give your forget-me-nots enough moisture, we're not saying soggy, but just moist and not soggy, is that they will bloom right through spring and summer. Now, there are different types of the ones which are wooded would actually bloom at the end of spring, whereas the ones which grow along the rivers would actually bloom in summer. But basically during that warm weather, and for as long as the soil is moist, these guys are really happy and they will shower you with all their brilliance. So what is the light requirement? They can do well in full sun, but they can also do well in partial sun, because if you try to imagine a wooded forget-me-not, you do have shade from the trees, so they actually can also do well in partial sun. So when we're looking at propagation of our forget-me-nots, we're looking at three methods. You could either have division of the plant, but I haven't done that yet because I haven't tried it, because I find a faster method. And the other one is a stem propagation, as we've done with many other plants. But the one which I usually go for is the seed propagation. Now we go back and talking about the seed propagation, which everyone says is invasive, because these little babies here, everywhere you get the plant, the flower, is where you're going to have your seed. And look at all those flowers. So in each of these little lovely tulip looking type pod, that's where the seed is. So as the flower goes into flower production and dries up, you get all these multitude of seeds. So one way of actually trying to control this plant is, first of all, you can try to deadhead some of the seeds, but I think it's quite tedious, because basically there's a lot of flowers here, and the seeds will produce, but at the same time you can't confine them in an area. So basically is as itself seeds in that area, you will every year get your forget-me-nots, but you can actually contain them. So now let me show you what I do with the seed production. So what I basically do is, once my forget-me-not starts turning into seed as this one, and they're actually quite pretty little seeds. If you look at them, they're beautiful. And the thing about them is that they're quite hairy. So as they dry, is that they tend to actually stick onto your clothes, and you can be walking around, is that it starts dropping its seeds if it's dry. But they do cling, and this is one of the techniques that they use for spreading their wild seeds everywhere. So then once the seeds are dry on the flower, all I do is I take it and I run my fingers in, and that's where I get my seeds. I just do that all the time once I have my dried seeds. And look at how many seeds you'll actually collect. There you go. So these are all the seeds. Let's talk about seed propagation. So here what I did is I actually had my forget-me-not, and it had dried, and I just decided I didn't know what to do, because I just decided, let me just scatter them in this bowl and let them start growing. And then in the end, I need to harden it now, bring it out, because I've just taken it from the greenhouse. But then generally what I'm going to do is actually leave this bowl outside so that the plants get hardened, because they're still quite weak and a bit scraggy. So once you do have this sort of situation, just get your pot, well-drained soil, full of bark. It's moist, not soggy. And I'm just going to go in here and look for big pieces. And out of that, like this, we'll continue picking from here as they harden. So I would actually have my hole and then just start my plants. So let me look for a nice one. This looks sturdy. There it is. I'm just going to move them here, and I'm actually going to get them into pots so that we can fasten the process of getting them into the garden. Here's another one. Now once you do plant them in your garden, do make sure they're about 6 inches apart, because they do get quite full, and it's good to give them the spacing. So I'd keep them at least 6 inches apart. So basically that's how I do my propagation for my forget-me-nots. So once I have them in the pot here, I'm going to harden them outside, which means introducing them slowly into the garden. And this lot here, I'm actually going to leave them outside so they can get a bit stronger. And then I will introduce this into the garden once they do get stronger. But this is basically how I do my propagation for forget-me-nots, is basically get your dried seeds and just scatter them, and then let this harden, and then start your transplant in a bowl. So thank you so much, fellow gardeners. Do go and get yourself one of these lovely forget-me-nots. I wouldn't be so bothered about it being invasive. I always have so many invasive plants in my garden, but it's how you control it. And don't forget to like and share and subscribe to my channel, and also press that notification bell. And do tell all your people about our gardening channel. And don't forget, we are on Instagram. DM me, write to me on YouTube, and I always do answer. And I really do enjoy getting your comments. So fellow gardeners, have a lovely, lovely day, and do buy yourself your scorpion grass. And until next time, thank you so much.